Here is a sentence that will bother you. In 2022, the top 1% of American households held more wealth than the entire bottom 90% combined. Not more than the bottom half. More than the bottom 90%. And here is the part that gets stranger. Most of those people did not work harder than you. A lot of them do not work harder than you right now. Some of them barely work at all. So either the game is rigged, which is too easy an answer, or there is something happening at a structural level that most people are not taught, never told about, and are actively discouraged from understanding. This video is about that thing. Not a motivational speech. Not a list of habits. Not wake up at 5 a.m. and visualize your goals. We are going to talk about money, the way money actually works, as a system, as a language, and as a tool that behaves completely differently depending on who is holding it. Because the gap between the wealthy and everyone else is not primarily a gap in income. It is a gap in understanding. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Before we go any further, and I mean this genuinely, not as a reflex, if you have ever felt like financial advice was written for someone else, someone who already had money to start with, someone whose life did not have the same friction yours does, this channel is for the person trying to understand the actual architecture of how wealth works. Not theory, not inspiration, the real mechanics. If that is you, subscribe. Turn the notification on. Because what we are building here, video by video, is the education that nobody sold you when you needed it most. Now, let us get into it. Let's start somewhere uncomfortable. There are two economies running simultaneously in the same country, at the same time with the same currency. Economy 1 is where most people live. You earn money by exchanging your time. You spend it. Some of it comes back. Most of it does not. You pay taxes on your income before you even see it. You save what is left. If the market drops, your retirement shrinks. If you lose your job, the whole system stalls. Economy 2 looks completely different. In this economy, you earn money by owning things. Assets pay you. If the market drops, you buy more. Taxes are optional in the creative sense, not illegal but structured. Time is largely irrelevant because the money moves while you sleep. Same country, same currency, different universe. And here is the uncomfortable part. Both economies are operating under the same legal framework, the same tax code, the same financial system. There are no secret laws for the wealthy, no special loopholes written exclusively for billionaires that the rest of us are not technically allowed to use. The difference is knowledge, specifically the knowledge of which questions to ask. Most people in economy 1 spend their entire lives never knowing that economy 2 exists. Not because it is hidden, but because the infrastructure of education, the culture of labor, and the entire framing of financial success keeps them oriented toward the wrong set of goals. You are told to get a good job, save money, contribute to a 401k, pay off debt, retire at 65. That is a complete financial strategy. It is just economy 1 strategy. And the people running economy 2 know exactly how it works because they designed it. In 1994, a man named Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You have probably heard of it, maybe read it, maybe dismissed it as self-help oversimplification. Here is the thing though. The central idea in that book, the one that made it sell 32 million copies, was not a motivational concept. It was an accounting definition, the difference between an asset and a liability. Most people think they understand this. They do not. Or rather, they understand the textbook version but not the behavioral version. In the textbook, an asset is something you own that has value. Your house, your car, your savings account. In the behavioral version, the version that actually matters, an asset is something that puts money in your pocket without you trading time for it. A liability is something that takes money out, regardless of what it is technically worth on paper. Under this definition, your house is not an asset. It is a liability. Property taxes, maintenance, mortgage interest, insurance. It is a machine that consumes money. It might appreciate over 20 years. But right now, today, it is taking money out. This is not a radical idea. Warren Buffett has lived in the same house in Omaha since 1958. A house he bought for $31,500. He has said explicitly that it is his worst investment. He owns it because he likes it, not because it makes financial sense. The wealthy do not confuse what they love with what builds wealth. Most people do. Constantly. The car that signals success costs you $800 a month. The vacation that signals freedom puts you $3,000 behind. The lifestyle that says, "I've made it," is mathematically the mechanism by which you never actually make it. And nobody tells you this. Because the economy depends on you spending. Consumer spending is 70% of U.S. GDP. You are not just a participant in the economy. In a very real sense, you are the economy. Your spending is the fuel. The wealthy are simply positioned on the other side of that transaction. Let us talk about compounding. You have heard about it. Compound interest. Einstein supposedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. He probably did not say that, but the sentiment is accurate. The idea that growth applied to growth creates exponential acceleration over time. Here is what they do not teach you. Compounding does not work the same way at every level. At $10,000 saved, compounding is charming. $10 million, it is terrifying. If you have $10,000 in a savings account at 5% interest, you earn $500 this year. You do nothing. $500 appears. That is genuinely great. That is the concept working. If you have $10 million invested across a diversified portfolio generating a modest 7% annual return, you earn $700,000 this year. Without working a single day. Without producing a single thing. $700,000. On returns that financial advisors consider conservative. Below average, actually. In a bad year. Now here is the kicker. The S&P 500 has returned an average of roughly 10.5% annually over the last 50 years. Not every year. Some years it loses 30%. But averaged out, over time, 10.5%. At that rate, $10 million becomes $11.05 million in year one. Then $12.2 million. Then $13.5 million. Then $14.9 million. This is not investment genius. This is someone sitting in a room, doing nothing, watching a number become a larger number because of a rule that applies to large numbers differently than small ones. The threshold matters. Below a certain level of capital, you are using compounding. Above a certain level, compounding is using you, producing more wealth than you could reasonably consume, faster than inflation can erode it. The 1% do not primarily get rich by being smarter. They get rich by crossing a threshold and then allowing the math to run. The strategy, then, is not to be smarter. It is to get to the threshold. Here is a fact that is both widely known and somehow never quite lands with the weight it deserves. In 2021, ProPublica published an analysis of leaked IRS data covering the wealthiest Americans. Jeff Bezos paid $0 in federal income taxes in 2007 and 2011. Elon Musk paid $0 in 2018. George Soros paid $0 3 years in a row. Michael Bloomberg paid $0 in 2018. $0. Not because of fraud. Not because of anything illegal. Because the tax code is built around income, and these people do not primarily make money through income. Let us break this down slowly, because it is subtle and it matters enormously. When you work a job, you earn a salary. That salary is income. It is taxed immediately at your marginal rate before you touch it. When a wealthy person's portfolio increases in value, when their Amazon stock goes from worth $1 billion to worth $2 billion, that is not income. That is unrealized capital gains. It is not taxed at all under any current U.S. law. It is only taxed if they sell. So what do? They do not sell. They borrow. This is the mechanism. It is called buy, borrow, die. And it is exactly as elegant as it sounds. You buy assets. The assets appreciate. You borrow against those assets, using them as collateral for low-interest loans from banks who are very happy to lend money to people whose collateral is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The loan is not income. It is not taxed. You live on the loan. You buy more assets with the loan. When you die, your heirs receive the assets at their current valuation, what is called a stepped-up cost basis. The entire lifetime of appreciation, untaxed. The loan gets paid off by the estate. The heirs start fresh. The 1% do not earn money and then figure out how to protect it. They structure their financial lives so that what they accumulate never legally qualifies as taxable income in the first place. This is not a bug in the tax code. It is, by many accounts, a feature. The debates about whether it should change are loud and ongoing. But the debate does not change the present reality. The present reality is this. The rules are different for people who understand them. There is a concept in economics called the velocity of money. It measures how quickly a dollar moves through an economy, how many times it gets spent and respent within a given period. Here is something that almost nobody talks about in personal finance. Wealthy people slow money down. Everyone else speeds it up. Think about what happens to a dollar when it enters a low-income household. It gets spent almost immediately: food, rent, utilities, transportation. It moves fast. It goes right back into the economy. That dollar might change hands 5 or 6 times in a matter of weeks. Now think about what happens to a dollar when it enters a high-wealth portfolio. It slows. It sits in an asset. It appreciates. It generates returns that get reinvested. It might not move in the transactional sense for years, decades. This is not a moral judgment. It is a mechanical description of how money moves differently at different levels of the wealth spectrum. But there is a lesson in it that most financial advice misses entirely. The goal of personal wealth building is not to earn more. It is to slow money down, to capture it before it exits, to convert it from flowing through your life into sitting in your life. Every dollar you spend is a dollar you are accelerating out of your hands. Every dollar you convert into an asset, even a modest one, is a dollar you are slowing down, making it stay, making it generate more. The wealthy are not better at earning. They are radically better at capturing. And the infrastructure of consumer culture, the advertising, the social pressure, the design of modern commerce, is almost perfectly optimized to prevent you from capturing anything. Not through conspiracy, just through incentive alignment. The economy runs on spending. Every institution with a financial stake in your behavior wants you to spend. Even the help costs you something. Let us talk about something more uncomfortable than tax strategy. There is a body of sociological research going back decades on what economists call social capital, the value embedded in relationships, networks, and access. Robert Putnam at Harvard. Pierre Bourdieu in France. More recently, Raj Chetty and his team at Harvard's Opportunity Insights Project have produced some of the most granular data ever assembled on economic mobility in America. Here is what the data says. The single greatest predictor of whether you will move up economically is not your education level, not your work ethic, not your intelligence, not even your family's income. It is the economic composition of your social network. Put simply, the income of your friends predicts your income more reliably than almost any other variable. This is not because rich friends will give you money, though sometimes they will. It is because networks provide access to information, opportunities, introductions, and invisible endorsements that formal systems do not capture. The wealthy know this intuitively. Private schools are not primarily purchased for educational quality. They are purchased for network density. The parent who pays $50,000 a year in tuition is not primarily buying better teachers. They are buying the permanent social graph of people who will occupy influential positions for the next 40 years. The job that gets you ahead is rarely the one advertised. Research consistently shows that somewhere between 70 and 80% of jobs are filled through connections before they are ever publicly posted. The deal that changes your financial trajectory is rarely the one that came through official channels. And networks compound just like money. The access you have at 22 shapes the access you have at 30. The room you are in at 30 determines the rooms available at 40. By the time you have been in the right rooms for 20 years, you are not being let in, you are the one deciding who else gets in. The 1% do not just build financial capital. They build access capital. And access capital converts to financial capital at a rate that no investment account can match. Now we need to go somewhere even less comfortable. Because all of this, the asset strategy, the tax structure, the network, requires a specific psychological operating system that most people are never equipped with. It is not positive thinking. It is not confidence. It is something quieter and stranger than that. It is a relationship with time that is structurally different from how most people experience it. Research on wealthy families, particularly old money, multigenerational wealth, shows a consistent pattern in how financial decisions are made. The framing is almost always intergenerational. Not what will this do for me, but what does this position for my children and their children? The Rockefeller family office has been in continuous operation since 1882. They have been managing, growing, and transferring wealth for over 140 years. That is not a financial strategy. That is a civilizational time horizon. Most people, and this is entirely rational given their circumstances, make financial decisions on a timeline of weeks to months. They have to. Rent is due monthly. Groceries are weekly. The paycheck is bi-weekly. The entire material structure of most people's lives enforces a short time horizon. Wealthy families have removed that enforcement mechanism. The house is paid off. The trust generates income automatically. The immediate pressure is gone. And when immediate pressure is gone, time expands. Decisions get longer. Patience becomes possible. Patience is probably the most underrated financial instrument in existence. Cannot be purchased. It has to be earned or inherited. And here is the genuinely uncomfortable part. Short-term thinking is not a personality flaw. It is an adaptive response to scarcity. When you do not know if next month's rent is covered, thinking 20 years ahead is not a virtue. It is a luxury. The wealthy are not more patient because they are better people. They are more patient because the structural conditions of their lives allow it. Which means the path to longer-term thinking is not discipline or mindset work. It is removing the short-term pressures that force short-term decisions, which requires building enough of a financial buffer to afford the luxury of patience. And that is the cruelest part of the trap. You need patience to build the buffer. You need the buffer to afford patience. Every high school personal finance class teaches the same thing about risk. Diversify. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. Protect yourself. The wealthy follow this advice after they have made their money. Before, in the building phase, the relationship to risk is completely different. The concentrated bet is what creates initial wealth in almost every case. Jeff Bezos put everything into Amazon. Elon Musk took his entire $180 million fortune from the PayPal sale and split it across SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity simultaneously. He was essentially broke by 2008. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard and bet everything on a single product with no guaranteed revenue model. None of this is traditional financial wisdom. All of it is how fortunes actually get made. The pattern is not recklessness. It is calculated asymmetry. The wealthy in the building phase look for situations where the downside is bounded. You can only lose what you put in, and the upside is theoretically unlimited. The failure case is losing the money and going back to working. The success case is owning a disproportionate share of something that becomes enormously valuable. This is why the ultra-wealthy consistently choose equity over salary. Salary is linear. It scales with time. Equity is exponential. It scales with value creation. Most people in the building phase take the opposite posture. They are highly risk-averse because they cannot afford to lose what little they have accumulated. This is entirely rational. But it is also the mechanism that keeps the threshold permanently out of reach. You can take larger risks when you can survive the downside. You can survive the downside when you already have capital. You have capital when you have already built some wealth. Circle complete. None of this is conspiracy. All of it is incentive. And the genuinely difficult question, the one that does not have a clean answer, is this: if the system is designed to work this way, and the 1% have optimized for a version of it that most people never see, and the information to access that version is technically available to anyone who seeks it, then why do so few people seek it? Is it because the system makes people too busy, too stressed, too financially pressured to develop the long-term orientation that would allow them to even see it? Or is it because the system works exactly as intended, producing a small group of people who understand it deeply and a large group of people who fund it without knowing they are? Those two explanations are not mutually exclusive. That is, perhaps, the most unsettling thing about all of this. The system does not need to be malicious to be effective. It just needs to be invisible. And now, at least for you, it is slightly less so.